Sally's Town, not far from here. I recently worked in London for a film company as a communications director, working with A-list celebrities like Sienna Miller and Angelina Jolie. I lived with my kind and loving partner in an up-and-coming and trendy part of London. Some people thought that I had the perfect life. However, something deep inside of me was quite unsettled, and I decided at the age of 30 to give up my high-profile lifestyle and all of the stability and the money that came with it, and set off on my own with my backpack around Latin America. Some of you might be confused and thinking, why would I want to do this? And logically, I can't really give an answer, except that I think that I wasn't really happy in the life that I was living. Something inside of me was telling me that I wasn't really living a life that was really true to me. But what really pushed me to make this change was whilst I was living in London, I was followed and attacked 3 times. Twice sexually and once for money. I also had my house broken into. Although I survived physically, these experiences really shook me emotionally. They broke my heart and my confidence, and they left me a shadow of my former self. I found it really difficult to leave the house on my own. I also started eating less and less, and I started working really long hours, trying to disguise from my mind the true feelings of shame and insecurity that started to develop. This was fueled by the attitude of society that said to me that I shouldn't be going out on my own late at night. I should be taking taxis, and I definitely shouldn't be talking to strangers. Logically, my mind agreed. The world just didn't seem like a very safe place based on my experiences. However, my heart rebelled and pushed me to do the opposite. Some of you might think this is a little bit foolish, maybe even a little bit reckless, and I can't honestly give you a logical answer as to why I felt the need to do this, other than it was the only thing that felt right to me at the time. Something inside of me was really fighting to break free. Maybe some of you can relate to this, and you can remember a time when your head was telling you one thing, but something deep in your gut was really pushing you to do something else. That was how I felt. So finally, I decided I didn't want to live my life in fear. And deep inside, I also believed that we lived in a beautiful world full of loving people, and these had just been a few traumatic incidences created by some troubled and ignorant people, rather than anything that should really change my view of the whole world and all of the people in it. However, it was really important for me to test this theory, and in doing so, find out the truth and overcome my fears. So I left on my adventures for Latin America, and I went to the Amazon jungle and stayed with a beautiful family who did everything they could to take care of me and look after me, despite not really understanding a lot of what I was saying, because my Spanish was really bad, and in the morning I would often greet them with adios rather than hola. However, when I decided to leave to continue in my quest for the truth, they were equally heartbroken and worried for my safety. My first experience after this unexpected security was another sexual attack in the house of my host in Brazil. This experience really scared me, but it made me realise how much I had grown as a person. Rather than crying and withdrawing feebly as I had done previously, I shouted and I screamed at the man, forcing him to stop. The next day, after reporting it to the police, I faced him and I told him that his actions were not acceptable and that he needed to see a psychiatrist, as much for himself as for other women. I don't know if in practicality I made much of a difference, but I felt confident that I dealt with the situation to the best of my ability and in the most positive way that I could at the time. My courage only grew from here and led to me opening my mind and really searching deep within myself to learn mindfulness and meditation from the monks in the mountains of India. I learned to open my heart, staying with one of the last hunter-gatherer tribes in the jungle of the Philippines, who really welcomed me with open arms, despite not knowing anything about who I was or where I was from, and I also saw them as family by the time that I left. Finally, I overcame my final fears and insecurities by travelling from Hong Kong to Wales using no money, using some of the techniques that I'd learned in the tribal community. As I'm sure you can imagine, my travels back to Wales with no money was not easy. However, I realised that if we can be bold enough to challenge conventional ways of thinking, we can open the hearts and the minds of the most unexpected people, and this brought real light and hope to my heart. One particular experience that I remember was I was in Sweden outside of a petrol station asking people if they were going to Gothenburg, only to face a constant stream of rejections, a lot of people looking at me really strangely, presuming me to be a refugee. I noticed this man in the distance and I looked him in the eyes and smiled hopefully. He drove off. I thought that would be the last that I would see of him, but not long later he came back and he asked me if I wanted to go with him to Gothenburg. When I asked him why he had come back for me, he looked at me and he said, "I really don't know. I've never taken a hitchhiker before, and my head was just telling me to keep driving, but for some reason I was compelled to come back." I smiled to myself quietly, feeling confident that in this moment, his heart had overridden his head and his preconceived idea of who he thought I might be. That's not to say that I only had good experiences. Some people did also try to take advantage of my vulnerability, and this made me really sad and disheartened. But it also made me realise that I needed to learn a lesson from this, and a really positive lesson, and that was that these people were suffering. They were in pain and they were lost. In their disillusioned state of mind, they presumed me to be an uneducated, vulnerable girl from a developing country that was not worthy of their respect and of their love. Rather than being angry with them, I chose to be compassionate and try to open their heart and their minds to deeper levels of life and happiness. After this experience, it was impossible for me to pass a homeless person or a refugee without at least sharing a smile, because I knew what it felt like to be vulnerable. And as the saying goes, we should never judge another person until we have walked in their shoes. What I also realised is that when we stop looking through our narrow fields of vision and we really try to understand the people around us, that's when we really start to learn and we can really connect with others in a meaningful way. Maybe some of you have experienced this. When you said something and somebody was overly suspicious of it, how did that make you feel? And I know for myself as well, when I was getting all of the no's, when I was trying to get back with no money, I tried to convert my mind to being compassionate and understanding why people were saying no, and understanding a lot of them, it wasn't that they didn't want to help me, they were just worried and scared because they didn't know who I might be. As a woman, and a woman of ethnic origin, I realised that your heartfelt intention can change everything. Even though we should be sceptical in certain situations, I feel that we've been conditioned to be overly suspicious and mistrusting of people. But if we convert that with a smile, looking into a person's eyes, connecting our hearts to theirs with compassion and love, we can bring people together and create unity. This can take us out of the role of being feeble and vulnerable women that need to be protected and into the role of bold, confident and happy women that can help lead change and live as freely as our hearts and minds desire. Thank you for taking the time to come to my talk today. Before you leave, I'd like to share one technique of mindfulness that I learned from the monks in India. It might be useless to some of you, but maybe for others of you, it'll help you understand something about yourself that you never realised before. I know it did for me. Either way, I hope you'll at least try it. So this week, when you have time, if you spend 5 minutes thinking about your identity, whether you're a CEO, a housewife, maybe a student, and then spend 5 minutes breathing deeply, thinking about yourself as a person and deconstructing that identity. What would your life be like if you were free of all of those preconceived notions associated with that identity and you lived more freely to your heart rather than your head and what other people said? How would your outlook on life change, your connection to others, and most importantly, how you saw yourself? I used to think of myself as an unattractive, shy, workaholic, and that identity clearly defined how I interacted with other people and my actions. It's only when I started to tear away that perception that I realised who I really was. Now I consider myself to be a global citizen that's equal to each and every one of you here today. I believe that we all have an equal right to freedom and happiness, and it is our duty to ourselves to find that and live a life that's true to our hearts. Thank you.